leads Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. Pittsburgh, winners of the Big East, against the unbeaten Mountain West champions from Salt Lake, the Utah Utes.
Immediately that offseason, our attention from the very beginning, even during mat drills, I can remember, Urban talking about this was, that we wanted to break the BCS, that they weren't letting us in, and that we were going to break the system, and that we were good enough. And that was like our singular focus. And everybody at Utah, look, we all kind of got looked over by the big schools, and so I think we all came together, and I think we all had something to prove, and the BCS became that like target for us, right? Like there was this identifiable thing that we could go do together. And so it was amazing that you had an entire team building, like coaches and players included, that like, again, to have just such a singular focus is so rare. Like it wasn't just win the Mountain West. Like we literally wanted to go undefeated and break the BCS and be the first school ever to do it. And I think there was zero doubt that we weren't going to do it. It gets forgotten a lot, like how dominant our defense was. Now it's kind of become a signature of Utah, probably over the last 20 years because of Kyle Whittingham. And like Utah defenses are known for that now. Like the Utah program is kind of known as tough defense. But he was our D coordinator. It was the same then. And you're totally right. Like the offense got too much credit. I got way too much credit. Obviously our defense was so good. Our defensive line was absolutely dominant. Eric Weddle, a part of those teams, Morgan Scalley. We were just so good up front and so physical. And I do think I often get asked, like, could we have played with the big schools? And for me, there's like, without a doubt, we would have, because of that, because of how we were built up front. Sione Puha went on to play a bunch of years in the NFL. Chris Kimiatu played a bunch of years in the NFL. Like we just had guys up front that were really difference makers, and they put on a show in the Fiesta Bowl. Steve Fifita, I think he had several sacks in that game. And so I totally, they kind of flew under the offense's shadow, but shouldn't have been the way. They were just as dominant, maybe even more dominant than the offense. Our playbook wasn't crazy extensive as far as volume goes. We didn't run a ton, but everything had so many adjustments that could be made, and specifically Paris's position, kind of the H that we played there. Like there were just so many routes and intricacies and hots, and like he had to break off first pressure and inside leverage, outside leverage, a lot of option routes. And Paris had just gotten so good at it again. And I do think his background of like playing quarterback, like he just knew how to get open. He knew time clock, and he put it on display. There were like several of the big plays in that game that, Pitt finally tried to pressure us. They started the game playing coverage, and we just kind of marched it down. And then they tried to heat us up, and it was kind of something that we always praised, Dan Mullen and Urban, like, when the defense is going to pressure us, like somebody's going to make a big play. Who's it going to be? And Paris was just so good at seeing everything and breaking off routes, and a couple of the big catches he had in the game were into pressure. And then to hit him, I think he also scored on the hook and ladder to Steve Savoy. Like Paris was a phenomenal talent. He was so versatile, so shifty, phenomenal hands. And so, for us coming from Utah at the time, like it just was so, again, like we were not accustomed to that at all. And I think, taken aback by it in some ways. And obviously it was amazing. That's what's special about bowl games, is some of that environment. And so it was cool. It was a very cool experience. I know it was like, again, unforgettable for everybody that had been in Utah, because we just, again, had never been a part of anything like that.